All right, we're back here on Titans Talk. We will continue our discussion about the Titans, previewing the second half of the year and where they are in this position in first place in the AFC South right now as we move along here on the show. We want to hear from you tonight, 737-7767, the number. Also hear from Jonathan Hutton, Titans radio sideline reporter, who joined us last night on the Electric Power Company Sunday Sports Central. We'll get to some of those clips coming up here before the end of the show as well. But first, we kind of teased this before the break, because it's been such a hot-button topic in the NFL. This year's been a hot-button topic on this show. But we've sort of seen the protests surrounding the national anthem die down over the last few weeks. It's become less of a topic. Well, it became a topic again yesterday, or really over the last few days, as essentially the entire Texans team kneeled during the national anthem yesterday in Seattle. But they were no longer protesting what they perceive as racial injustice or systematic oppression in the black community as the original protest became. They're now protesting their own team owner, Texans owner Bob McNair, who last week it was reported, and he ultimately apologized to his teammates, or his players, in an NFL meeting last week about business interest of the league and how it was affected by these protests and the public perception of it, ratings going down, all those sort of things. McNair was speaking on the situation and said, essentially, it's bad for business to have these protests going on, to have the distraction, to have public opinion swayed against your league in the way it is, and that you can't, quote, have the inmates run the prison. And immediately, and this is where I think social media and everything leading to this protest has just jumped the shark. Immediately, when that came out, which, by the way, it came out several days later, when it came out, this story just ran rampant at how terrible of a thing to say, and oh, Bob McNair's a racist, and he views his players only as objects or prisoners or all those sort of things. Hold on just a second. There's a very common idiom out there of you can't let the inmates run the asylum. Now, granted, he didn't get the idiom right, but that idiom makes a ton of sense given the context of the situation, of what he was doing. By no means, whether you think the protest of the national anthem and what they were going for is a just cause and they have that right or not, we've discussed that on this program. Whether you think that or not, there's pretty much no argument that the protests have been good for the National Football League. It has made people turn off the games. It has made people walk out of stadiums in small margins. It has absolutely brought an unwanted distraction and an unwanted business problem to the owners of National Football League teams and the NFL itself. There's no question that is the case. And so that's what he's talking about in this meeting with other NFL owners. Now, he botched the idiom, and there's no question about that. But the larger context of understanding the idiom and understanding the greater conversation, I think, is what you need to look at here. Here's the other thing. Bob McNair is an 80-year-old guy who, first and foremost, has a track record of philanthropy and working with minorities in the community and doing all sorts of really good things with his players and with members of the community of all races and genders and things like that. He was hugely influential after Hurricane Harvey just a month or so ago down there, in the money that he gave and the stuff that the organization did within the community. So that's his background. That's his track record of his actual actions in this regard. But yet everybody wanted to just wipe that away based off of a quote from this meeting. And oh, by the way, he's 80 years old. 80 years old. He's getting up there a bit in age. So maybe he doesn't always process things exactly the quickest way or the sharpest way when he speaks. And as someone who speaks nightly for a living, so hopefully I'm kind of good at this, you misspeak. I probably will misspeak in the next hour on this show. So I think as a society, we have to be real careful of holding everybody to quoting things exactly correctly or jumping to conclusions of what they say every time they say something, because we all misspeak. I've been in the Titans locker room for 7 years. Just about everybody I've interviewed in there has misspoke at some point. I don't immediately walk out of the room and think, oh, they're this or they're that. We really have to be careful of jumping all over people in some of these instances. But the Texans themselves, players walked out of practice on Friday. They said, oh, this is clearly what the owner actually thinks. Never mind what he's done with us, what he's helped with my charity, what he's done for our team and with our community over the years. This must be his true feeling. And oh, by the way, there was a guy, Troy Vincent, who works for the NFL, who was in that meeting. He took umbrage to the statement during the meeting. And you know what he did? He went up to Bob McNair after the meeting was over and said, I don't like that. I don't like how you referred to it as if NFL players are prisoners. And Bob McNair immediately snapped and said, you know what? That's fair. I didn't mean it that way. It came out wrong. Troy, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. That's not how I meant it to come out. You know my analogy, but that's not what I meant, and I'm sorry for that. Yet it becomes a massive story, and then he has to apologize to his team as well. To me, that's where the story needs to end, though. But the Texans get down on a knee, and now people are wondering why they're kneeling during the national anthem again, and we have this conversation all over again. But this has jumped the shark again on social media, and yesterday, NFL Countdown on ESPN, Charles Woodson actually said that he would refuse to say the O word, owner, on NFL Countdown. I mean, I don't even know where to go with that. And then Randy Moss jumped in as if the public needed to be reminded that the owners actually don't own the players. I don't know how you even get that from this conversation or from what happened in that boardroom in New York City. Bob McNair has been a model owner with his teammates and with his players and with his team and organization in the city of Houston. Yes, he misspoke. Yes, he should probably even understand how that could be taken or construed the wrong way. And I think he does, based off of his apology, both in private to the people who were in the room and now publicly. At what point do we move on? At what point can we just move on to the next thing? Clearly the Texans are not with that. And it goes even further than that. Besides the conversation on NFL Countdown, Draymond Green, who's been very outspoken on all these things, star of the Golden State Warriors, who, by the way, can't play 5 minutes in an NBA game without saying something that would be controversial or offensive to an opponent. That's just the bottom line about who Draymond Green is. He was asked about Bob McNair's comments on Friday. And Draymond Green says, people can no longer say figures of speeches in 2017. Now, figures of speeches is not the correct thing to say. So, again, because people misspeak, we probably shouldn't jump all over here on that. But since he's jumping on someone who misspoke, let's talk about what he actually said. He said, we can't use figures of speeches in America in 2017. So I guess all hyperbole is out. You can't say it's raining cats and dogs outside. You can't do any of that sort of stuff because it's all offensive. Come on. There are real issues in America today. This whole protest of the national anthem and where it started from, that we've had many discussions about, actually started with a purpose that should be debated and should be talked about of how valid the concerns are, what we can do to alleviate those concerns and make America a better place. Those things are real. What Bob McNair said is not. The backlash around it is not. And being an owner of an NFL team, that's not a bad thing. As Charles Woodson said, you can't use the word the O word. He is the owner. If he wasn't the owner and paying all the money he is, all 53 guys on his roster aren't millionaires. You have to have owners of businesses, of teams, of all those sort of things in order for the economy, in order for the league, in order for these jobs to work. It doesn't mean he owns them individually. It means he owns the team in which they work for. And the bottom line is the way the Texans acted on Sunday proved his point from the meeting that when you let the employees run the business as if they know what's best for the business loses. And the NFL, the one thing that you can say throughout the entire ordeal that has been this season and these protests is however you fall on their right to do it or not, or the mission behind the original protest versus where America stands today. Wherever you fall in that, there is no disputing that the protests themselves have been bad for the business of the NFL. And the Texans' stance and protest on Sunday in Seattle proved Bob McNair's point in the meeting from what he said in the first place. When the people who own the businesses and run the businesses are cut off by the employees, and the employees believe they know how to run the business the best and have disregard for what the rules and the beliefs of the business are in the first place, that is when the business loses. And the Texans and the NFL as brands took another hit on Sunday because of that. We got to take a break. We'll come back, get to your phone calls, and we'll move back into Titans discussion after this. 737-7767, the number. Stay tuned. More Titans talk on the way after this.